A white cop kicked a quiet black woman, calling her nothing but a janitor. He laughed at her gloves, shoved his boot at her chest, and tried to break her in front of the judge. Everyone thought she'd bow her head in shame until she finally fights back. "You just messed with an ex-Delta Force commander. Step aside, ma'am. Your kind are not allowed here." The words came sharp, arrogant, like spit against skin. Officer Thomas Blackwood stood in his pressed Navy uniform, badge shining under the courtroom lights. He was young, maybe 35, tall, pale, and broad-shouldered with the kind of confidence that came from knowing the system bent in his favor. He sneered at the woman in front of him, an older black woman in her late 60s, wearing a faded blue custodial uniform and thick yellow gloves. Her posture was calm, steady, but her silence only fueled his contempt. "This is a federal district courtroom on Willow Street," Blackwood barked, raising his voice so the gallery could hear. "Not the cleaning closet. Go grab a mop or something." The woman did not move. She had short gray curls, a face weathered by decades, eyes deep as iron. Her name tag read Eleanor Vance, Facilities Management. Blackwood smirked. "What are you even doing inside the witness stand area? You think wearing rubber gloves makes you important? You're just a janitor. You clean up after real people." He chuckled and stepped closer, his boots clicking on the polished marble floor. The courtroom murmured. Some chuckled nervously. Others shifted uncomfortably. The judge, Patricia O'Connell, raised an eyebrow, but hadn't spoken yet. Eleanor didn't flinch. She looked straight at Blackwood, her face unreadable. Blackwood grinned wider. "Don't look at me like that, lady. You don't even belong in this room. You belong outside, maybe scrubbing toilets." He leaned in, voice dripping with mockery. "What did you do? Sneak in here to feel important for a day?" Her silence infuriated him. He slapped his baton against his palm. "You deaf too?" That was when the judge finally spoke. "Officer Blackwood, that's enough." But Blackwood wasn't finished. He puffed out his chest, clearly enjoying the spotlight. "With all due respect, Your Honor, this is a courtroom. We can't just have janitors wandering around like they're part of the trial. Next thing you know, she'll be giving testimony like she matters." The words cut through the air like knives, like she matters. The gallery grew restless. Eleanor stood unmoved, her gloved hands folded in front of her. She didn't break eye contact. Her silence wasn't weakness. It was something else, but Blackwood was too blind to see it. Judge O'Connell's gavel cracked against the desk. "Officer Blackwood, sit down now." But instead of obeying, Blackwood made his move. He stomped forward, the courtroom gasping as he suddenly lifted his boot, aimed directly at Eleanor's chest. His mouth twisted with laughter. "Let's see if the janitor can mop this up." The air froze. The boot was inches away from Eleanor's body, black leather shining under the light. The sound of his voice, dripping with venom, echoed off the mahogany panel walls. Yet Eleanor didn't flinch. Her eyes never moved. She simply stood, solid as a mountain. To the room. She looked like nothing more than a cleaner. An old woman in cheap shoes. A black woman who'd been invisible her whole life. The type of people step past without notice in high-rise lobbies and suburban malls. The type America often overlooked. But Eleanor Vance carried a past no one here knew. Her life had been a battlefield long before this courtroom. She had once been Major Eleanor Iron Vance of the Army's 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment, Delta, one of the most elite operators the U.S. military ever produced. She had served in classified missions in global hotspots like Kedar and New Alexandria that never made news. She had worn camouflage in deserts and mountains, rescued high-value targets, and stared down hostile forces without trembling. But nobody here knew, not the judge, not the gallery, and certainly not Officer Thomas Blackwood. All they saw was an old black woman in custodial clothes, someone easy to mock. And that was exactly why Blackwood made his final, critical mistake. "Ma'am," Blackwood said louder, his boots still raised. "Say something. Tell me you're not just a janitor." His voice dripped sarcasm. He leaned his weight into the raised leg, showing off his strength. "Look at you, standing there like you're tough. What are you going to do? Clean my boots?" The audience laughed nervously. A few people shook their heads, embarrassed but unwilling to intervene. Blackwood slammed his foot forward the last inch, pressing his boot hard against her chest. "Move," he barked. Still, Eleanor didn't budge. Blackwood snarled. "You don't get it, do you? You're nothing here. Nobody cares about you. You're not educated. You're not respected. You're just a janitor. And you'll always be just a janitor." The judge was on her feet now. "Blackwood, stand down, or you'll what?" Blackwood cut her off, arrogance dripping. "This is a joke, Your Honor. You're letting a cleaner stand in the same space as witnesses. This isn't her place. People like her never belong in this court." The words "people like her" sliced through the room. Black, working class, invisible. Eleanor's hands slowly unfolded. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't argue. She simply let her yellow-gloved hands fall to her sides, her shoulders squared, her face carved with patience and steel. What no one knew was that Eleanor Vance wasn't here to clean the courtroom. She was here to testify against Officer Thomas Blackwood. He didn't know it yet, but the woman he mocked as just a janitor was about to expose his entire web of corruption. Illegal payoffs, stolen evidence, and fabricated arrests that ruined innocent lives across the city. She had seen too much, kept meticulous records, and had the courage to come forward. Blackwood grinned, pressing harder with his boot, believing he had humiliated her. But Eleanor Vance finally spoke, her voice low, steady and razor-sharp. "You're about to learn," she said, "that not everything is what it looks like." "Say something now, janitor," he mocked. "Tell us you matter. Prove it." For the first time, Eleanor moved. She placed her yellow-gloved hand gently against the officer's boot, like someone steadying a piece of fragile glass. Her eyes locked on his, unblinking, unafraid. Her voice was calm, sharp, and cut through the room like a blade. "You want proof? You'll get it." And then she moved. In a flash, Eleanor rotated her wrist, sliding the boot off her chest with practiced precision. At the same time, she shifted her weight, grabbed Blackwood's ankle, and twisted. The officer's smug smile vanished as his body spun in the air. A thundering crash echoed across the courtroom when he slammed flat on the floor, his baton skidding away. Gasps erupted. Blackwood scrambled, but Eleanor was already on him. With a fluid motion, she disarmed his holster, tossed his weapon to the far corner, and locked his arm behind his back with a grip so tight his face turned crimson. "This isn't possible," Blackwood wheezed, writhing on the floor. But Eleanor's movements were flawless, smooth, sharp, and controlled. The cold efficiency of someone who had trained her entire life to end a confrontation in seconds. "Order! Order!" the judge boomed. Eleanor pinned Blackwood harder, his cheek pressed to the polished marble floor. Then, with a calmness that silenced the gallery, she leaned close to his ear. "You thought I was invisible because of these gloves," she whispered. "Because of this uniform, because of the color of my skin. But let me educate you, officer." She looked up at the stunned courtroom, her voice loud enough for all to hear. "My name is Major Eleanor Vance, Delta Force, retired. I served this country 27 years. I carried brothers and sisters home under fire, while men like you terrorized safe streets. And I am here today, not as a janitor, but as the key witness against this corrupt man you call an officer." The gallery exploded. Gasps, murmurs, shouts. People rose to their feet. Judge O'Connell's jaw dropped. "Major Vance. Operation Red Dawn. Fort Hamilton extraction. My God." The courtroom turned on Blackwood instantly. His fellow officers in the back row avoided eye contact, shifting uneasily. Eleanor released the pressure, just enough for Blackwood to breathe, but not enough for him to move. "You're finished," she said, her voice like steel. Eleanor reached into her uniform pocket, pulled out a small black, encrypted data drive, and held it up for the judge. "This contains the complete record of every bribe, every false arrest, every piece of evidence Officer Blackwood destroyed. I cleaned the very halls where he thought nobody was watching, but I was watching always." The judge pounded her gavel. "Bailiff, take him into custody." Immediately, 2 deputies rushed forward. Eleanor finally released her hold, rising with calm grace as they hauled the stunned officer to his feet. He stumbled, humiliated, his eyes darting wildly to the gallery. The same crowd that had laughed now stared with disgust. "You just assaulted a decorated war hero," someone shouted. "You're a disgrace," another yelled. Blackwood's swagger was gone. His body trembled. His face was hollow with shame. Martha, she stood still, her yellow gloves gleaming. For the first time, she removed them slowly, peeling each one off with quiet dignity. She laid them on the witness stand. "You all saw what he tried to do," she said softly, voice steady. "Not just to me, but to the truth." Judge O'Connell's voice cracked with respect. "Major Vance, on behalf of this court, you have my deepest gratitude. Justice will be served swiftly and completely." The gallery erupted in applause. Blackwood, in handcuffs, hung his head in shame. His career, his reputation, his false bravado shattered in an instant. Eleanor turned to the people, her gaze sweeping over them. "You looked at me and saw a cleaner," she said, voice low but strong. "You saw someone beneath you. But greatness doesn't wear one face. Dignity doesn't come from a title. And respect isn't earned by a badge. It's earned by the truth." The deputies dragged Blackwood out. Eleanor slipped her gloves into her pocket and walked slowly toward the door. Before leaving, she paused, turned back, and left the room with one final line. "Never mistake silence for weakness. Sometimes silence is just patience, waiting for the right moment to speak."